Once again, welcoming the entire class of SE Electronics and Computer Science Semester 3 for the subject Electronic Devices, abbreviated ED, with the subject code ECC 302. We continue further with module number 2, which is titled Special Semiconductor Devices. As you are all aware, the contents of module number 2 as per the syllabus contain unit number 2.1 and unit number 2.2. We had already covered unit number 2.1 titled the Zener diode in the previous lecture number 12. Sorry, 11. Today we'll be continuing further with unit number 2.2, in which we'll be focusing on the Schottky diode. So, starting off with module number 2, unit number 2.2, the Schottky diode. Before we go further, the only knowledge required is a very good understanding about the PN junction diode and its operation in the forward bias condition as well as in the reverse bias condition, something which was already covered earlier in lecture number 2 for module number 1. The YouTube lecture video link as well as the QR code that links for the same are as shown. We have already seen the operation of a PN junction diode in the forward bias condition, in which depletion layers are kept extremely small. Reason being that the battery voltage which is applied externally will force the holes from the p-type material to diffuse into the n-type material, as well as the electrons which are the majority carriers in the n-type material to diffuse across the junction into the p-type material. Due to this, the width of the depletion layer decreases. Of course, the battery or the supply voltage which is applied externally, given as Vs, should be of a sufficient magnitude higher than the intrinsic barrier potential, which is typically 0.2 to 0.3 volts for germanium, and it is around 0.6 to 0.7 volts for silicon. We have also seen the PN junction diode VI characteristics, but in the forward bias mode of the operation. It has two states. One is the forward blocking region and one is the conduction region. The forward bias mode of operation also gives rise to a phenomena called as the diffusion capacitance. This is because as holes and electrons diffuse across the PN junction, they start to accumulate on the opposite ends near the PN junction around the entire depletion layer. This is how we are able to get the diffusion capacitance. Similarly, for the reverse bias mode of operation, when the battery supply voltage terminals are completely reversed, you have now attraction. Holes are now attracted towards the anode because it is supplied with a negative terminal, whereas electrons are now attracted towards the cathode because it is supplied with a positive terminal. The entire depletion layer width widens because of this reverse bias. This makes it impossible for any current to flow through the device, with the only exception of a very small reverse current, which is due to the thermally generated minority carriers. We have also seen the VI characteristics in the reverse bias mode of operation, in which avalanche breakdown takes place. The reverse bias mode of operation also gives rise to something called as transition capacitance. Reason being that as the applied battery voltage Vs increases further, there is also an increment in the depletion layer width. And as the depletion layer width increases, there is increment in both the negative charge as well as the positive charge during the reverse bias mode of the operation. Due to this, we have a phenomena which is called as the transition capacitance. Technically speaking, both capacitances are called as the junction capacitance because the entire PN junction diode structure now behaves like a typical parallel plate capacitor. Assuming that the diode structure has got a uniform symmetry, that is, the body is completely symmetrical between the anode as well as between the cathode, this can be likened to a parallel plate capacitor having the capacitance given by C is equal to epsilon A by D. Here epsilon refers to the permittivity of the dielectric constant or of the dielectric material, which is for the PN junction diode taken to be the depletion layer region or the depletion layer width. It is called as the dielectric material because it has no free charge carriers. That is, there is a total absence of electrons. There's a total absence of holes which allow any current conduction to take place through it. A is of course the cross section area of the N type and of the P type material, assuming they are both to be uniform, and W is nothing but the width, also equivalent to thickness or the distance between the two parallel plates. So this phenomena of transition capacitance is actually exploited by the Violector diode, something which we had seen earlier in the lecture number 12, because this is an electronically controlled capacitance. If you are able to control the applied reverse bias voltage Vs, you are also able to control the depletion layer width, and hence you are also able to control the transition capacitance. We just quickly take up a phenomena called as the reverse recovery time, because this particular parameter, the reverse recovery time, is very important before we take on to the actual topic, that is the Schottky diode itself. With the view to understand this particular reverse recovery time, just take the following. A diode, when it is functioning in its forward bias condition, has its depletion region shrink to almost nothing. It is in fact very thin. That is because the external supply voltage applied will be used by the device to overcome the intrinsic barrier potential, which is again 0.2 to 0.3 volts for germanium, but it is 0.6 to 0.7 volts for silicon, which gets imposed on it due to the presence of the immobile charge carriers in the depletion region. These immobile charge carriers are nothing but the ions. You have an entire wall of negative ions on the p-type material near the junction. You have an entire wall of positive ions in the n-type region near the pn junction. Now just imagine that one reverse biases this voltage by simply inverting the polarities connected to the diode anode and cathode terminals. So basically what we are doing is we are making an abrupt shift from forward bias to the reverse bias condition. Ideally, this particular act of doing so should bring the diode from its on state to the off state immediately. That is, the diode which is actually conducting current in its forward bias mode of operation is expected to stop conducting instantly. This is what we see when we have the diode current ID plotted as a function of time. Time t1 is the particular instant when the change or the particular transition from on state to the off state, that is from forward bias to the reverse bias condition, takes place. However, what is seen that practically this cannot be experienced as the flow of majority charge carriers through the diode does not cease right at the moment when the reverse bias is applied. They will in fact take a finite amount of time before stopping, and this time taken is known as the reverse recovery time of the diode. So what you see is the reverse recovery time given by TRR is actually composed of two subtimes. One is the storage time given by TS, and one is what is called as the transition time given by the term TT. So TRR is equal to nothing but TS plus TT. Reason for this particular reverse recovery time is during the forward bias mode of operation, diffusion takes place. You have holes moving on from p-type material to the n-type material, and you have electrons moving from the n-type material to the p-type material. At any given point of time, during the forward bias mode of operation, the concentration of these minority carriers, here I am using the word minority carriers because holes are going from p-type region to the n-type region. So in the n-type region, these holes become the minority carriers. Similarly, electrons are going from the n-type region to the p-type region. So near the pn junction at the p-type region, they become the minority carriers. And this is again giving rise to diffusion capacitance. So TS indicates the storage time because this is nothing but the time taken for the current to flow in the reverse condition although the supply voltages have been now reversed, due to the presence of these minority carriers inside the device, recombination still keeps on taking place. So there is a certain amount of time taken for the entire recombination to be completed. And once the recombination takes place, as you're all aware, current always flows. That is why from the graph, what we see is that the current does not cease immediately, but it instead goes on for a certain time called as the storage time. Now, once the reverse bias voltage is applied, immediately, some of the minority carriers do not undergo recombination, but instead they are drawn back to their original region. It is because of the reverse bias. So holes which are very near to the PN junction will be drawn back towards the p-type region, while the electrons which are in the which are in the p-type material near the PN junction will again be drawn back towards the n-type region. Here, the only cause because of this drawing back is the apply of a reverse bias, which will have an attractive force attracting the electrons and holes towards the terminals. So this particular withdrawal is shown by the transition time. And once this takes place, yes, the current definitely will approach zero. So although the desired response is shown by a typical dotted line, which is a typical decreasing step, practically you will have a certain reverse bias current flowing through it as shown by the shaded area, and this is where the speed of operation of normal PN junction diodes to switch from on state to off state is a slight matter of concern, because with this particular condition they are not able to process extremely high frequency or extremely high changing signals with respect to time. It is because of the diffusion capacitance and also a bit of the transition capacitance that you have a charge storage, and this charge storage is not good in terms of the reverse recovery time. Ideally speaking, the reverse recovery time has to be zero. There should be no stored charge, and for no stored charge to occur, you should change the structure and you should change the construction and you should also change the Dobbin profile of the PN junction diode, which ensures that there is no accumulated charge in or around the PN junction. So this particular concept of the reverse recovery time puts a major drawback on normal PN junction diodes operation when they are used to operate at a very high switching frequency, because they need to turn from on to off and conversely from off to on state at almost zero time instant. This problem was solved by the German scientist Walter Hans Schottky when he invented the Schottky diode and hence gave it its name. Schottky is very famous in the world of physics for his classical Schottky's equation, which computes the interaction energy between a point charge q and a metal surface in which the point charge q is at a distance of x from the surface. One of Walter Hans Schottky's earliest inventions in the year 1915, when he was working as an engineer at the famous Siemens Research Laboratories, was the invention of the screen grid vacuum tube. He later on invented the ribbon microphone and the ribbon loudspeaker along with his colleague Erwin Gerlach. He obtained his degree in physics, that is his PhD, from the world famous Humboldt University of Berlin, Germany in the year 1912. And Max Planck, who is famous for his Planck's constant, supervised his PhD research in the field of semiconductor physics. So the Schottky diode gets its name from its inventor Walter Hans Schottky. So what did he do by which this reverse recovery time was virtually reduced to zero? Well, what he did was, in his particular Schottky diode, he just replaced the p-type semiconductor material with a metal. Yes. So here what you have is you have the n-type semiconductor as it is, but its doping levels are moderately to extremely high. They contain electrons as the majority carriers and a very few number of holes are the minority carriers. But this n-type semiconductor material is now interfaced with a metal, not with a p-type semiconductor material. Reason is that electrons have a mobility which is roughly 2.5 times faster compared to holes. So it makes sense to have a n-type semiconductor material in the interface of the metal and the semiconductor itself. The n-type semiconductor material continues to be attached to the cathode given by K, whereas here the metal is connected now to the anode. And for a metal, as we are all aware, referring to the classical energy band diagram, you have 99.99% electrons which are already present in the conduction band, or we can even go forward and say 100%. There are no electrons present in the valence band. So here what we see is that there are a lot of electrons which are now in the conduction band. And as compared to a PN junction, what we have is we have a metal semiconductor junction interface. This is completely different as compared to a typical PN junction. So looking at the structure or looking at the construction, what we find is the Schottky diode is formed by merging a metal. It can be gold or silver or platinum or even say aluminum if you want the cost to be kept in check, with an n-type semiconductor material. As per the applications, the n-type semiconductor material can be either made of silicon or it can be either made from gallium arsenide. The n-type semiconductor material will be moderately to very heavily doped, and it is connected to the cathode terminal through a metallic or an ohmic contact. For these metallic or say ohmic contacts, either gold or either aluminum are the most preferred metals. The metal is usually connected to the anode terminal through a gold leaf so as to increase or enhance the conductivity. Schottky diodes are unipolar devices. Both the metal and the n-type semiconductor have electrons as the majority. In fact, the only carriers present. Although you may here argue that for the n-type semiconductor, you even have a bit of holes. But looking at the entire diode from a complete piece, the metal has electrons. There are no holes, of course. The n-type semiconductor material, due to its very heavy doping, has a maximum concentration of electrons as well. So the overall number of these particular majority carriers, that is electrons, is far, far, far exceeding than the number of holes. Hence, it is also proper to call the Schottky diode as a unipolar device. And this unique metal semiconductor junction interface allows the barrier potential to become very low, typically between 0.12 and 0.15 volts. This is even far lesser as compared to germanium, which was around 0.2 to 0.3 volts, and this is of course far lesser as even compared to silicon, which now hovers between 0.6 to 0.7 volts. This is a picture taken about how commercially available Schottky diodes look like. Although they actually resemble the normal PN junction diodes, but they have different part numbers. The Schottky diode can be symbolically represented by a PN junction diode symbol, but the cathode bar here contains a figure which is similar to the Schottky alphabet, that is S. So the name comes Schottky diode. Many of the standard text or the literature show this part to be curved, but the modern literature shows it to be a proper line. The Schottky diode operates just like a typical PN junction diode, that is under zero or no bias condition, the forward bias condition, as well as the reverse bias condition. This is how the actual construction of a real life Schottky diode looks like. When we take the operation under the zero or the no bias condition, what we see is that there is no depletion layer present. It is due to the fact of the metal semiconductor junction interface lying over here. Obviously, the energy level of the electrons in the n-type semiconductor without an external bias is quite low as compared to the energy level of the electrons which are already in the conduction band. So there is no transfer of electrons taking place from n-type semiconductor material to the metal. So there is no chance of any current flowing through the device under a zero bias or under a no bias condition. So what we have is the anode terminal is again connected to the metal as against p-type material for the ordinary p-n junction diode. The metal has all the electrons present in the conduction band, while the valence band is here virtually empty. Hence, the electrons in the conduction band of the metal have a very high energy level. The cathode terminal, that is K, is connected to the n-type semiconductor material, where electrons are the majority carriers and holes are the minority carriers. When the Schottky diode is completely unbiased, that is without any external battery supply voltage connected to it, the electrons in the n-type material have a far lower energy level than the electrons in the metal. Under this condition, electrons from the n-type material are not able to cross the metal semiconductor junction in interface. Since the electrons cannot move from the n-type material to the metal, there is no passage of current possible through the Schottky diode. For the forward bias condition, what we see is that we have an external battery source voltage applied with positive terminal connected to anode and negative terminal connected to the cathode. So what we see is we have electrons are actually attracted in the metal region towards the anode because of the positive charge, while at the cathode end the electrons are completely repelled due to the negative charge. In physics, as we know, like charges repel and like charges attract. So basically that is what happening here. Electrons in the metal are attracted towards the anode, that is the positive terminal, due to the forward biasing. Similarly, majority carriers, that is the electrons, once again from the n-type material, diffuse across the junction into the metal side, and this particular diffusion is only due to the external battery source voltage applied. Now, since this is a semiconductor material, you have a very thin wall of ions, that is positive ions, which are formed on the side of the n-type material, which is very near to the metal semiconductor junction interface. For every single electron that leaves the n-type material and diffuses into the metal, you have a single ion left behind. So that is an extremely thin wall which is formed of positive ions in the forward bias mode of operation. Here we have the positive terminal of the battery connected to the anode terminal, which is metal. Once again, to increase conductivity, we can have gold or silver or platinum, but aluminum is preferred if the cost have to be kept low. The negative battery terminal is connected to the cathode, which is an n-type semiconductor material. The electrons acquire a very high energy to cross the junction and to enter the metal side, thereby causing the flow of current. Although electrons are moving from cathode to anode, the conventional current direction is always from anode to the cathode side. These electrons from the n-type material plunge into the metal side after crossing the metal semiconductor junction interface. Hence, they are called as hot carriers. Reason being that when these electrons diffuse from n-type material into the metal, they strike or they collide with the already large number of electrons present in the metal surface. This particular striking or this particular collision produces heat due to friction. Hence, they are called as hot carriers. The Schottky diode contains electrons as the majority carriers on both sides of the junction. Hence, the name is a unipolar device. Virtually, there is no depletion layer or no depletion region formed in or around the metal semiconductor junction interface. Hence, there is no diffusion or the storage of any charge carriers. This is the most important point that the Schottky diode has as compared to a normal PN junction diode in its forward bias mode of operation. This makes an almost zero case for a diffusion capacitance to exist for a Schottky diode as opposed to a normal PN junction diode. If we look at the Schottky diode operation in the reverse bias condition, the battery terminals here are completely reversed as shown. We have the battery negative terminal connected to the anode, but we have the battery positive terminal connected now to the cathode. This causes electrons to now repel from the anode side, but it causes electrons to be now attracted towards the cathode side. The electrons in the metal now get a sufficient boost thanks to the applied reverse bias voltage, and they cross the metal semiconductor interface junction and they land into the n-type material. The electrons in the metal are repelled due to negative anode potential, and they cross the Schottky barrier with which they enter the n-type material. The electrons, which are the majority carriers in the n-type material, are attracted towards the positive cathode terminal in the n-type material. So we get a slight increase in the Schottky barrier width due to the reverse bias conditions. Looking at the operation, we have the negative battery terminal connected to the anode, which is made of metal, either gold or silver or platinum or again aluminum. The positive battery terminal is connected to the cathode, which is an n-type semiconductor material. The electrons on the metal side are easily repelled due to a negative potential on the anode terminal, thereby crossing the PN junction. These electrons from the metal side enter the n-type semiconductor material, constituting the flow of current in the reverse direction as well. This is due to the virtual absence of any minority carriers or holes. Hence, the current is flowing only due to the majority carriers. No current flows due to the recombination process because there are virtually no holes present in the Schottky diode. This is the particular reason why reverse saturation leakage current IS will be quite higher as compared to ordinary PN junction diodes in the reverse bias condition. Although you may now claim that the Schottky barrier is there, but the width of the Schottky barrier is not high enough or not sufficient enough to stop the flow of electrons from the metal into the n-type material. So current also flows in the reverse bias mode of operation as well. For the part of the VI characteristics, what you see is that the forward bias characteristics are exactly similar to PN junction diodes, but the only difference being that the forward breakover voltage for a Schottky diode is far less as compared to a silicon diode. Here, VFBO stands for forward breakover voltage Schottky barrier, and this is forward breakover voltage for a PN junction diode or for a typical normal PN junction barrier. Characteristics are almost the same, but the current curve for a Schottky diode is still far steeper as compared to an ordinary PN junction diode. So as we plot the VI characteristics, they are basically a plot variation of the diode current ID against the applied forward bias battery voltage VD. This shows an exponentially increasing curve of the variation in the diode forward current as the diode forward voltage increases. This is again modeled by the same Shockley's equation as we had seen much earlier. The electrons acquire a very high energy to cross the junction and to enter the metal side, causing the flow of electric current. This unique metal semiconductor junction interface with a very low Schottky barrier potential gives only a voltage of 0.12 to 0.15, that is still extremely less as compared to an ordinary PN junction diode. There is no storage or diffusion capacitance CD in a forward bias mode of operation, unlike ordinary PN junction diodes. The VI characteristics curve is far steeper than the PN junction diode due to the high concentration of the current carriers, that is the electrons. If you look at the advantages, the extremely low forward turn on voltage is actually used to rectify very low amplitude AC input signals because you need a very less voltage. Since there is virtually no junction capacitance present, you are able to achieve very high operating speeds. Almost negligible reverse recovery time given by TRR makes these Schottky diodes best suited for extremely high speed switching times and also at very high frequency applications. They have a very high efficiency. There are no minority carriers present due to the construction and the doping profile. You only have electrons, which are the majority carriers. They have an almost negligible forward bias resistance RF due to the gold plating contact between the terminal and the metal side at the anode. This is why the curve appears to be very steep. However, Schottky diodes also come with their own package of drawbacks. The first one being that due to only electrons and only electrons itself, which are the majority carriers, they tend to have a higher order of reverse saturation leakage current IS compared to ordinary PN junction diodes. The forward operating voltages are extremely low as compared to the PN junction diodes, typically not more than say 50 volts. They cannot withstand a very high reverse bias voltage and hence they tend to break down earlier as compared to ordinary diodes. Reason is that Schottky diodes also tend to conduct current when they are reverse biased. Due to the hot carrier effect obtained in the forward bias and also in the reverse bias mode where electrons entering from one region to the other tend to collide or tend to strike with the other. This causes friction, which in turn causes heat. That is why Schottky diodes tend to heat up more quickly as compared to ordinary p-n junction diodes. And if metals such as gold, silver, platinum are used, their cost is also very high and the fabrication process also becomes extremely expensive. The applications of the Schottky diodes are digital electronics and logic circuits such as gates. Due to their fast switching times, they are useful for digital computers. Rectification of very high frequency AC input signals, clipping of very high frequency AC input signals, clamping of very high frequency AC input signals. In fact, all the three applications, rectification, clipping, and clamping, the ordinary PN junction diode can actually be replaced by a typical Schottky diode if the voltage is very less or if the frequency of the AC input signal is very high. They are used in communication circuits such as mixers, detectors, etc. They are also used in modulators, demodulators, once also a part of electronic communication systems. They are commonly used in switch mode power supply, abbreviated SMPS. With this, we come to an end of the module Schottky diode, which is in unit number 2.2, module number 2, titled Special Semiconductor Devices. The list of textbooks, reference books, as well as the website and the online resources are the same still. Before we leave, I would just like to give you a real life practical example about the reverse recovery time. Students usually have a bit of difficulty understanding it, so I tend to give this example from my own experience, which I again find it very useful. If you take a look at the reverse recovery time, what you saw was the current through the diode was still going on. It was still in progress despite the forward bias condition changed to a reverse bias condition with the reversal of the battery polarity. To understand how this happens in a typical analogous way, take an example of a hotel or a say typical restaurant. They usually have their closing times close to midnight, maybe even 1 a.m., 2 a.m., depending upon the local authorities' permission. But here, let us take an example for which a restaurant is able to do its business say at typically 1 a.m., although the time may slightly extend beyond that. So in the evenings or at night, they have a very large clientele. You have lots of people going to have their meals. So when the time comes very close to 1 a.m., restaurant management will not allow anybody to come inside the hotel. That is where they have a cutoff time. However, for the clients or for the people who are already in the particular restaurant, there is no way the management can tell them, okay, now we are at 1 a.m., time is closed, so please take your now food with you and just go and get lost. No, that will not happen. Although people are prevented or they are told that the hotel has shut, so you cannot come in. However, there is still a bit of activity going on inside. For all the people who have already booked their tables, meals are being prepared. People are now having their food, they are paying the bill, and they are finally moving out. So you have an activity going on there too inside. So once the hotel is shut from the outside, this is akin applying to reverse bias. However, even when this reverse bias is applied, even when the hotel shuts its gates, there are people inside, so there is still activity going on. This is similar to recombination still taking place due to the already existing charge carriers present in the device. However, as people have their meal, they pay the bill and they slowly move out, the activity starts to decrease. The staff now starts winding up because the number of people have now decreased. This was similar to the fact that when you are applying the reverse bias, the electrons and holes are now, which did not undergo recombination, are now going back to their own devices. So here people are now going towards their own homes. So the activity will now decrease. That is why the graph which you saw was completely flat in the starting for the time period given as storage time. But the same graph then started decreasing exponentially towards zero for a time called as transition time t. Now this transition time t in the hotel is similar to the guest moving out as they have their meal one by one. And once the last guest leaves, the hotel is completely shut. The eatery is completely shut. So you have the current also completely shut. Now compare the same phenomena if the same hotel or if the same restaurant gives you something called as a takeaway. So you only have a single window by which you give the order, pay the money, and you take your parcel. Once that window is shut, immediately no activity takes place at all. There are no pending orders, there are no people waiting in line, nothing is there. So once the window is shut, the business cannot take place. This is what differentiates a normal PN junction diode and a typical Schottky diode. That will be all. Thank you very much.